What's up, guys? Welcome back to another review. Today we're talking about Salem's Lot, an R-rated vampire film that hits Max this weekend, or I guess last weekend. I'm a little late to this one, but I think this film flew under a lot of people's radars for a number of reasons. First of all, it had a very troubled production and was delayed time and time again. It's directed by Gary Dauberman, the same director as Annabelle Comes Home, a film that I'm not a big fan of, and I think he also was a screenwriter on a couple of the other Conjuring films. In Salem's Lot, writer Ben Mears, portrayed by Lewis Pullman, returns to his childhood town of Jerusalem's Lot, or Salem's Lot, in search of inspiration, and it turns out he chose a pretty poor time to return because it seems as though vampires are taking over the town and slowly but surely infecting all of the residents. Let's cut right to the chase. This movie is a jumbled mess that feels like it was cut down from an original cut that might have been upwards of like 3 hours. There are so many scenes that you can just feel are missing and they were left on the cutting room floor. Rarely does it feel like a good sign when a movie like this goes straight to a streaming platform. But that, combined with all of the delays, the history of troubled production that I won't get into, and I don't even know the full extent of the details, I just know that there were issues, a lot of studio intervention. I just don't really know who this was made for. Now, granted, I have not read the 1970s novel written by Stephen King. Yeah, also, this is a Stephen King adaptation. Those can be very hit or miss, but I don't think this really portrays the vibe of a Stephen King story very well. So, fans of King's books are going to be disappointed. Fans of vampire flicks, I think, will also be disappointed because this movie has no identity. There are quite a few characters in the story, most of whom I'm sure are in the novel as well, but they get hardly any development, and most of their introductions are reduced to exposition and people just explaining their backstories to each other. It's so superficial, and once again, it gives off this vibe that a lot was cut out of the movie. I mean, there are transitions here between scenes that suggest there's a lot that's missing. Talented character actors like Bill Camp and William Sadler are wasted in supporting roles that I forgot about almost the second their characters walked off screen. Lewis Pullman is okay as our lead here. I just don't think he was given much to do. I think he's actually a pretty great actor, but there's only so much you can do when you're given such a flat role to play with. He's given a love interest who is entirely forgettable. I have to assume some of these characters are better portrayed in the novel and maybe also in the Tobe Hooper miniseries from the 70s, which I also have not seen. It's also extremely tame, and maybe tame is the wrong word because there is quite a bit of blood in certain sequences, but it never feels like it earns those moments. Children die in this film, characters that you think might have a little bit of hope end up biting it, but there's no tension in their fates and there's no emotional investment in them either. I just didn't give a shit. It looks extremely sterile, totally digital. The vampires also don't look great. There's something about the eyes that bothers me. They're glowing yellow, but they're so bright that you can tell it's just a digital effect that's added afterwards. These actors weren't wearing contacts, and it just feels very slung together. I don't think I would really call it ugly. It is slick looking, but in a way that leaves it feeling like a product rolling off of a conveyor belt rather than a passion project adaptation of a well-renowned novel, which is exactly what it should have been. Ben is the only character that I found to be really tolerable or entertaining to any degree. There's a secondary character named Mark, a young boy, who I've heard is actually a large part of the novel, and his character arc is extremely rushed in here. And he's not scared of any of the vampires that are antagonizing him, which is just ridiculous coming from a child and totally removes any sense of realism that you might have in the story. In terms of things that I liked, there are a few good visuals. There's a scene where a character holds up a cross to a vampire and they fly through this doorway. It was a cool effect. The main vampire, Kurt Barlow's design is pretty great, but he's totally underutilized and not very scary. I was just shocked by how tensionless this movie felt. In the third act, there's a scene where the characters are walking through a ghost town, and it's a moment during the day where they kind of come to this realization that the entire rest of the town has been turned by this point, and they're the only ones left. And it should be this really tense, bone-chilling sequence in which the characters come to this realization that come nightfall, they're probably going to die unless they figure out a solution to their current predicament. And I was shocked when I sat back and was like, wait a minute, I don't feel anything right now. It's not scary, it's not tense. So in the end, this is a pretty lame adaptation and a pretty lame vampire flick in general. It lacks the campy delights of something like Fright Night, but also has no aspirations to be as frightening as some of the other King adaptations like It or The Shining. Vampires should never be this boring. I'm giving Salem's Lot 2 stars. So there are my quick thoughts on the new Salem's Lot adaptation. I hope some people weren't waiting a long time for this with high anticipation, because I can see this being extremely disappointing if you're one of those people. As always, guys, be sure to stay tuned for more videos and hit that like button as well as subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.